Hey, I wanted to start this morning with a story, a brief story about the first time I ever dated, the first girl I ever dated. I was going to Wilbraham Middle School in Massachusetts. I was 14 years old. Her name was Laura Mathieson, and we were both in 8th grade, and she was everything I had dreamed about. She was blonde, blue-eyed, cute, and I'm like, this is the one. You know, when you see the one, you're like, this is the one. She was the answers to my prayers. And so even though, because we were 14, we couldn't drive, our parents would take us to the movies or drop us off at the mall, so we got to spend time together, hold hands. And then we still do them today, but we'd have the school dance. And so we would go to the school dance, and that's when you got to dance with her, and it was just such a exciting time for me. And at one dance in particular, I was fooling around, because I'm 14, so we were like horsing around with my friend, and he ended up pushing me, and as he pushed me, I kind of went backward. My head went back behind me. I didn't realize Laura was standing right behind me, and my head hit her right in the face, right in the eye. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. It hurt me, so I can only imagine her. And so she feels really dizzy. She goes home, and she ends up getting a black eye. And it's like a Friday, because that's when the dance is. Well, that weekend, I'm at home playing with my friends. I'm on my bicycle, and I was distracted, so I'm looking behind me as I'm biking down the driveway, and I run into the lamppost, and it smacks me right in the eye, and I got a black eye. So the next day, we both showed up with black eyes in school on Monday. Everyone thought we got in a fight. And, honestly, this was probably like a omen or a sign of things to come, because shortly after that, the love of my life dumped me for a 7th grader. Right? It's bad enough to get dumped, but when you're an 8th grader and they dump you for a 7th grader, that's like insult to injury. I'm like, I can't believe this. My heart was broken. Like, I don't know about you, but I was like, this woman, she completed me. Do you know what I'm saying? Anybody remember what that movie that's from? Jerry Maguire, right? And Jerry Maguire comes to this realization toward the end of the movie that the girl he's been dating, she's the one. And he says to her, you complete me. All of us, like, we love that line. Maybe we love that movie in that moment. And, the funny thing is he walks into this book club, and it's all women, and he says this to her, and they're all like, oh, their hearts melt, because we all want someone who completes us. We all looking for somebody in a relationship that kind of gets us. But here's the problem. They're not always easy to find, are they? Some of us are out there, we're still looking. And I have to ask this question because we've been through relationships. I tried that relationship. It didn't seem to work. Why is it that some relationships that we have work out and some of the relationships that we have don't work out? What is the secret to a lasting relationship? Some of us, after enough times dating, right, we've dated a few times and we go through this, we may be wondering, is it even possible to have a relationship that's fulfilling, right? The one that we're hoping for. Or maybe you're in a relationship right now. And you've been in a relationship for 20, 30 years. And to be honest, if you're really honest, it's like it didn't really turn out the way I expected, you're thinking in your heart, right? And you're wondering, can I make this relationship I'm currently in, can I change it somehow? Can somehow it be transformed to the relationship that I've always dreamed about? This is a question sometimes we have. I believe it can. But I believe also you have to do it God's way. The Bible has a lot to say about relationships, a lot to say about dating and marriage, and most of it comes from the New Testament. We find it in a lot of the letters that were written by Paul and Peter. We see these instructions to us as we're married and dating. But did you know that there is a book in the Old Testament that talks about passion, intimacy, and marriage? Yes, there is a book back there, because if you look through the Bible, it's all these stories of kings and, people... the creation of the earth and all these other things, but there is actually a book, and so we're doing a series on it, and the series is called Love Story, and it's based on the Old Testament book called the Song of Solomon. And maybe you go, oh, the Song of Solomon, also sometimes called the Song of Songs. You see, King Solomon was like a prolific writer. He wrote a ton of different things. In fact, he wrote the book of Proverbs, if you've ever picked that book up. The book of Ecclesiastes was written by King Solomon. He wrote 2 of the Psalms, that exists, number 72 and 127. But he also wrote this book, the Song of Solomon. And it says this, though it's up on the screen, I see you looking. It says he, referring to Solomon, composed some 3,000 proverbs, and he wrote 1,005 songs. So there's all these songs that he wrote. We don't really have a copy of those except for this one song, and it was labeled the Song of Songs. Like, this is, of all the songs that he's written that you want to know about, this is the one. And this is the reason it is his best is because probably it speaks about one of mankind's greatest virtues, and that is love. So the Song of Solomon is a love story between a man and a woman. It's a love song or poem between two main characters. There's going to be some other characters as we go through this book, but the two main ones is one, she's called the woman, she's called the Shulamite. So when you read the Shulamite, he's the object of her love. And then he is called the beloved, or sometimes the shepherd, or sometimes the prince, or the king. And so there's a few names that he's been given. And I believe that this book is important for us, but it's been very controversial over history. And the reason it's controversial is because of the explicit nature and description as it goes into physical intimacy, as it describes these things. In a Jewish culture, this book was actually not allowed for young men to read until they were 30 years old or they were married, because they were worried that they would be tempted. And because it might entice them into this unmarried man. Now, I was watching a movie last night with my son, or actually it was Friday night, and the girls like watching these, like young love stories. And every time the man kisses the woman, my son's like, oh, no. He like cowers and kind of hides his head, and we kind of, tease him a little bit. But it's so explicit, the book of the Song of Solomon, that it will make you and I blush, even if we're married, okay? It will make us feel a little uncomfortable. So as the weeks progress and you read some of this, you're going to be like, okay, I hope nobody's looking at me, because it's kind of, like I said, it's explicit. And it's so graphic when it comes to physical intimacy. And so some people don't really believe it's about human relationships. They think it can't possibly be about human relationships. I mean, God, would he really put something like this in the Bible? So a lot of people refer to it or believe that it's an allegory between God the Father and the people of Israel, because he often refers to in the Old Testament as God's being the father or the husband to his bride or his wife, which is Israel. Or sometimes people believe that it is an allegory for Jesus' love for the church. I don't know if you know this if you're a Christian, but you're referred to as the bride. Yes, ladies, you might enjoy that. Men may be like, I don't know, but at least it shows God's love for you and me. And I believe that we should take this book, the Song of Solomon or Song of Songs, and we should take it literally. And it was a relationship of Solomon, perhaps, with a woman, maybe the first woman he ever fell in love with, or maybe it was one of the last because he has quite a few relationships, or that it was a literary work of art that he created to describe the human experience when it comes to love and passion and relationships. But we must remember this, that first of all, God created man and women, okay? Right? We all agree there? He created us, but he also created the institution of marriage. It's found right there in Genesis chapter 2. It says the man will leave his father and mother. They will join to his wife, and they become one flesh. And think about this for a moment. As crazy as it sounds, God created sex. It's true. It was his idea. Sometimes you're like, does God really want us to do this? You're like, yes, of course he does. He created it for you and me, and he created it for us to enjoy. These were his ideas. He's not embarrassed by them. Sometimes in church culture, we get a little embarrassed by it, or we don't want to talk about it. And yet it's a very important part of our marriage. In fact, in one of our subsequent, as we continue to move down, there's going to be a message strictly on that and how important it is for our relationships. But I believe he puts it in the Bible for a specific reason, that we would understand some principles for fulfilling and lasting relationships. So we're gonna start up, and I have it up here on the screen, and I've kind of added some titles so we know who's talking. It just starts off with the Song of Songs, which is Solomon. So that's the first line. But then the Shulamite, remember, she is the woman. She's the object of his affection. She says, let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. We see right away, man, she's attracted to him. Because of the fragrance of your good ointments, your name is ointment poured forth. Therefore, the virgins love you. Draw me away, right? This poetic language, we're kind of understanding what she's communicating here. And now these other characters, the daughters of Jerusalem, are kind of like her friends, and they'll interject a few lines here and there. And she says, we will run after you. You're going to be drawn away. Okay, we'll come along to help you out. And the Shulamite says, the king has brought me into his chambers. So he's invited her over to his home, basically. And the Shulamite says, the king has brought me into his chambers. We and the daughters respond, we will be glad and rejoice in you. We're glad this is happening for you. We will remember your love more than wine, because you guys epitomize the perfect relationship. And so the Shulamite says, rightly do they love you, referring you is the object, the beloved, and rightly do the other maidens love you. And so she says, I am dark but lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. Do not look upon me, because I am dark, because the sun has tanned me. My mother's sons were angry with me, and they made me the keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyard I have not kept. And we're going to talk about just what she means here in just a moment. But it starts off, we're introduced to these two main characters in the story. And she's like, let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. Your love is better than wine. Now, on Instagram, I always see that women love wine and chocolate. So imagine his love is greater than all those things, right? She's attracted to this man. But it's not just a physical attraction. She is attracted to him physically, his appearance, but it's actually more than that. She's actually attracted to his character. When she says, your name is ointment poured forth, she's like, about your name. You see, in that culture, a man's name was one of the highest things in their society. It was one of the most important things. It was his reputation. In fact, when Solomon is writing one of the Proverbs, he writes this, a good name is more desirable than great riches. You want something that's most important? It is your good name. To be esteemed is better than silver and gold. So she says, your name is like ointment poured out, right? And that means if you poured ointment on something, what does it do? It brings you peace. It brings you relaxation, perhaps, or it brings healing. And so for him to be around, to her to be around, or him to be around you, you were like, yeah, I welcome his presence because of who he is, because of his reputation, because of his character. We all have friends that we don't want to be around. We're like, no, I'd rather not spend time with you. But there's others we're like, yeah, I love it when they invite me over. I love hanging around with them because of who they are. And that's what she's saying. This guy he is a man of good character. And so we kind of go through notes here at Faith Generation to kind of help you and help the message stick. So if you received an outline when you came in, would you pull them out? And we're going to fill in a couple of statements here that will help this message stick today. And the first one is this, that physical attraction might be the start, right? We see people, we're attracted to them, of the relationship, but it cannot be the heart of the relationship. Okay, so we're going to be attracted to them, but we're going to see and look into something more. Because the first thing that we ever see when you meet somebody is their appearance. What do they look like? You know, maybe their physical appearance. Maybe it's the look on their face when you see them. Right? That's the first thing that we see. And there's nothing wrong with physical attraction. In fact, I want to encourage you to find somebody you're physically attracted to. That's going to help a lot in your relationship. We all should be. But we must also understand this, that the physical appearance is not really who they are. That's simply the package that it comes in. When Israel was looking for a new king, they asked for a king and God gives them Saul. But Saul doesn't work out. He's not really faithful to God. And so Samuel, who anointed him, he was a prophet, God comes to Samuel and he says, Samuel, go anoint a new king. So he goes to the house of Jesse. Anybody watching the house of David, right? I haven't been watching it, but I know the story. So he shows up at the house of Jesse and he says, send your sons in front of me so that I can anoint the new king. And the first one's name is Eliab. And Eliab is tall, dark, handsome, broad-shouldered, strong. And he's like, this has got to be the one, right? And then God comes to him and says, no, he's not the one. In fact, this is what God says, because God didn't see just the outside packaging. God sees the heart. He says this, the Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. The perfect guy. He's the perfect king. And he's like, no, not him. Oh, bring the next one. Not him, not him, not him, not him, not him. All the way down. What? You only have 8 sons? No, there's one more. He's out in the field, and that was David. You see, there's an idiom, probably you guys know this one, right? You can't judge a book by its cover. right? That's what we've heard. And it means that you can't judge the value of something by the way something looks. And in our culture, most of the time, we use that kind of more in the negative, meaning something looks really rough or it's not worth anything. And you go, don't judge a book by its cover because there's gold inside, right? There's something of value inside. But the reverse is also true. It may look awesome. It may look wonderful. But then the inside is not. My uncle, he was a very successful businessman. He had a great business. In fact, his daughter still runs her husband runs the business. He's very lucrative, right? And he was great with it, but he also, from time to time, would get certain partners to try different business ventures. And there was one in particular, his name was Hans. And Hans was very charismatic. He would tell jokes, he would tell stories, you'd be drawn in. I mean, he was the kind of the life of the party, right? And so this guy would talk his way into everything. And I remember the first time I met Hans. And so Hans was talking to me, and yes, he did have an accent, just like the name Hans, right? So he starts talking to me, and he says this. I don't know why he decided to tell me this story, because, one day when my son was growing up, he says, my son wanted to learn how to fight. So he says, Dad, can you teach me how to fight? His dad says, sure. And without warning, he spit in his son's face and punched him right in the face. And he's telling me this story, and he's laughing, having a great time. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Was this supposed to be a good thing? Like, I don't know if I would do that to my son. Here, I'll teach you how to fight, right? Just punch him right in the face. And I'm thinking, who is this guy? Well, it was indicative because, sure enough, shortly after that, not only did he betray my uncle, but he cheated him. And I'm like, really? It was there all along, but from the surface, you couldn't tell, right? And that's the truth. It's easy to get caught up in how someone looks. And look again, someone looks good, that's great. But don't be drawn in just because of their looks. Because if we go by how they look, we might overlook how they behave. And behavior is so important. It should never, their appearance should never overshadow their character. And the heart of the relationship, of any relationship, ends up being character over time. You see, the thing is, you and I will eventually fade when it comes to our beauty. The Shulamite was not just a pretty face. Okay, we end up finding out that she is quite beautiful, but she compares herself to the tents of Kedar. What does she mean? Or Solomon's curtains. Well, look at the curtains right here. They're black. Why? Because they keep light out, right? And in that culture, if you were moving through the desert, you wanted to keep all light out so you were completely in the shade. So most of their tents were made from goat's hair, dark black goat's hair. And so this is what she's saying. I'm dark like that. So, and now that wasn't necessarily the best thing, because in that culture, the lighter your skin was meant that you were a person of affluence, because you were inside all the time, away from the sun, so your skin was fairer. But if you were out and you were dark, that meant you were working outside. So that you might have been a little bit lower class. And in fact, she explains, my brothers made me go out and work, and in obedience to them, I went out and work at the risk and at the sacrifice of me looking great, is what she's trying to say, right? But it wasn't her beauty that he was attracted to. Also, he was attracted to the outer beauty, but it was also her character, because of the way she treated her family and what she did. When you think about this, and I don't want this to depress anyone, but when you get married, that's probably the best you're going to look most of the time, right? Because you're all dressed up. I've never seen an ugly bride, no matter what. I've seen some not so good-looking wives, but never seen a bad-looking bride. They have these beautiful dresses. They're all done up, and you can attest to that. But after that, everything kind of starts to slip away, and over time, we all look in the mirror and we go, like, man, I'm not what I used to be. I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh man, another line on my face, right? Or some spot or some blemish, because beauty fades. But the good news about character is it actually can grow. It can grow into something better. So find a person that's good on the inside. So he's going to continue on. Let's see what's next. So the Shulamite, the woman, says, tell me, O you whom I love. So she's like, tell me, O you whom I love, where you feed your flocks, where you make it rest at noon. For why should I be as one who veils herself by the flocks of your companions? Let me find out where you're at. I want to go and be there with you. Next slide. And so the beloved responds He says, if you do not know, O fairest among women, follow in the footsteps of the flock and feed your little goats beside the shepherd's tents. He's like, okay, you want to come hang out with me? He's like, yeah, let's do it. Come on along. You see, she's interested and he's interested. And she wants to know where he's hanging out so she can be there too. You know, my wife was interested in me. I've said this not even that long ago, but when she met me, I was a singles pastor at the church. And when she set her sights on me, I was going to go down. That's what she thought. Like, I'm getting this guy. I want him. She was showing up everywhere. I'm like in Macy's in the underwear department, and I'm like, hey, you shop here too for men's underwear? Yeah, sure. You know, she just, anywhere I was going to be, she was going to make sure she was there. And we ended up spending a ton of time together. You know, that's what happens. And this is so important in a relationship, that you spend time together. In fact, you should fill this out in your outline. To really get to know someone, get to know their heart. But to get to know someone's heart takes time spending time with them. Again, like I said, when you see somebody's physical appearance, you know whether you like it or not right from the beginning, right? You might see a little bit about their personality. You love their smile. I love the jokes they make. Or I love the way they stand that certain way, or that quirky little thing, right? We see those things, we're attracted to them. But it is by spending time with somebody that you see what's in the heart. You know, how do you acquire a good name? How did the beloved, acquire a good name? It was because he was consistent in his character and in society and everywhere he went. And the only way you see that is to be consistent in spending time with somebody else. The Shulamite asked the man to tell her where he'll be so she can be near him. And so she can get to know him. And this is the interesting thing. She says, why should I be like one who veils herself by the flocks of your companions? I don't want to hang out with your companions. I want to find you. And she talks about this idea of veiling herself. Now today in our culture, if you put a veil on yourself, it's really a sign of humility and maybe innocence. But back then it was just the opposite. I don't know if you've ever been in Genesis where Judah goes to find a prostitute, right? And she veils herself. Tamar veils herself. So at that time, if you were wearing a veil, you were like a prostitute. She's like, why should I go over to where your buddies are and try to attract them with my beauty, right? He's like, why should I do that? I don't want to do that. That's not how I want people to know me. I don't want them to know me because I look great in a bikini or because my hair is perfect or because I look a certain way. So she's like, I don't want to seduce you by flaunting myself in front of you. She wants to spend time to get to know him. And he says yes. Why? Because she knows this too. I put it in your outline. Charm is deceptive and beauty does not last, but a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised. I don't want you to know me just by how I look. I want you to know my inner beauty so that you will really love me. When I was at the church before I planted this one, 19 years I was at that church, and I did a lot of premarital counseling. And I got a call one day from a guy who wanted premarital counseling. And so he says, hey, Pastor John, I know you. And he said his name, and he says, do you remember me? And I'm like, I'm not sure. I'd probably have to see you. I didn't remember who this guy was. He didn't really come to the church a whole lot. But he says, listen, I would like to do premarital counseling for me and my wife, and we're going to get married on such and such a date. And I said, okay, well, we usually do a couple sessions, about 3 sessions of premarital counseling before that time comes. And so I said, how can we make that happen? And he says, well, we're getting married, and it was like a month away or something like that. And he says, well, we're going to get married on this date. And I said, okay, so what days are you available? He says, well, she won't even be in the country until the day of, like 1 day before. And I said, okay. And I said, is she in the military? No. And I said, well, are you planning to move out of the country with her then? Is that what's happening? And I said, no. And I said, well, tell me a little bit more about her. He says, well, I met her on the internet, and we've been Skyping together, and we've been talking regularly. And I said, excuse me, but have you ever met her in person? And he's like, no, I've never met her in person. I'm like, seriously? I didn't say that. That went off in my head. And I said, listen, I care about you, but I am not going to marry you. I'm not going to put my stamp of approval on something where you don't even know this person. You've only seen the best foot forward. In fact, you've only seen from here up. You might not even know anything about this person. You haven't spent time together. You haven't been through adversity with each other. You know, you've got to rub shoulders with a person for a while to get to know the real person, because when we go on that dating scene, you're looking at the picture of who they want you to see, right? We're showing our best person to them. And yet there's something behind that, which is on the inside. Anyway, this guy decided not to listen to me. He got married, and within 1 year, he was already divorced. And I was like, okay, now we found out. You see, if you want to find a partner, you got to spend time getting to know them. I'm often very cautious with people who say, we're going to get married, and we've only known each other 3 months. And here's what I would say to somebody if you're in that situation. Some of you may have done that. We just knew, God told us. And I'm like, okay. But here's what I would say. Time is on your side. You've got plenty of time to make the right decision instead of keeping it short and making a decision that you might regret later. You can always make it work. Just time is on your side. So if you want to find a partner, you've got to spend some time with them. So men, does the women that you know have that inner beauty that you're looking for? The Bible says this: your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. And women, how does he treat you? How about this one? How does he treat his mom? Because if he treats his mom a certain way, once you're with him, you might be getting the same treatment in your life. Is he angry? Is he frustrated with people all the time? Then maybe you might want to think about that, because he might look awesome. He might be the guy you've always dreamed of, drives on a motorcycle and, has all the hair, right? And you're like, okay, this guy looks great. But what you're looking for is the fruit of the Spirit in his life. If you don't know it, it's in Galatians, it's in your outline. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. This is what you're looking for, ladies, in a man. Spend time in the same environments, getting to know each other. And one of the best places to do that is in church. Like I told you, that's where I met my wife, in church. God just brought her to the church, and I met her, and we started dating over time, and we got to know each other. And I saw something in her that was on the same path and track that I was on. I was a single man in a church who was a pastor. I had to marry a Christian woman who was going to be on the same path as me, and not just somebody who was like okay with going to church, but somebody who was actually going to want to do something like plant a church one day. Well, I remember when I spoke to my wife and I said, baby, I believe that God has called me to plant a church. And I'm not sure where that is. And she said, well, I said, how do you feel about that? And she said, well, John, I told you when we got married that I was going to follow you wherever you go, and I'm still going to do that. This church wouldn't exist if my wife didn't feel the same way. I want to encourage you to find the person who's on the same path that you're on. And when you find that person, and they're good on the inside, put a ring on it, guys, and marry her, okay? So we're going to finish this area of Scripture today. The beloved now, this is the man. He says, I compared you, my love, to my filly among Pharaoh's chariots. That's a horse, by the way. Your cheeks are lovely with ornaments, your neck with chains of gold. And the daughters of Jerusalem, they're the audience here. We will make your ornaments of gold with studs of silver. And then the Shulamite says, while the king is at his table, my spikenard. Spikenard was this fragrant oil. If you remember the woman that anointed Jesus' feet and then wiped it with her hair, she used a bottle of spikenard, and it was extremely expensive. She says, my spikenard sends forth its fragrance. A bundle of myrrh is my beloved to me, that lies all night between my breasts. My beloved is to me a cluster of henna blooms in the vineyards of En-Gedi. And then the beloved says, behold, you are fair, my love. Behold, you are fair. You have dove's eyes. And the Shulamite says, behold, you are handsome, my beloved. Yes, pleasant. Also, our bed is green. The beams of our houses are cedar, and our rafters of fir. This is the end of the first chapter. And so what can we learn from this? Well, first off, man, don't compare your wife to a horse. I know he does that here, but don't do that. I don't think she's going to take it the same way that the Shulamite did, okay? But the Pharaoh's chariots were driven by stallions. okay? And he says the filly or the mare, the woman, he says, you're like a female mare among these incredible. Now, the Pharaoh didn't have like sickly stallions, right? It wasn't like donkeys. These were majestic animals. And among them, here's this beautiful filly. What do you think happens when a bunch of male horses are around one female horse? They all want her. They want to fight over her. And he's like comparing her to that. He says, you know what? Like Pharaoh's among the best men out there, and you are in the middle of that. They all want you, and I want you. He's like raising the value. He's telling how beautiful she is, how amazing she is. He says, you are greatly desired. And then she says to him, like the fragrant smell on her breasts all night long. Every man just leaned forward in interest at that statement. Like, I want to know more about that part. Just wait. We're going to get to that in the subsequent weeks, right? He says, my wife, you know this? My wife loves fragrance. Does anyone realize that about your wife? My wife loves fragrance. She's like all the time, like getting these soaps. She's getting certain like little things that release odor in our house. I don't even know what they're called, right? And she has certain ones that she really loves. I'm still trying to learn those. I think she changes it every time. But anyway, she loves fragrance. And she keeps the woman, she says this, your fragrance, your cologne, I keep on my chest, over my heart as I sleep at night. What is she saying? It really wasn't a sexual reference. What she's saying is, as I'm sleeping, it's right here. All I can do is smell your cologne. All I can do is smell you all night long. Even as I'm dreaming, that's all. I'm thinking about you. It's a statement of her devotion, how much she cares about him. She's like, I just want to think about you all night long. It's reminding her of him. So what's going on here? They're telling each other how much they long for each other, how much they love each other. They are feeding each other's emotional needs. And so this last thing to fill in your outline is this: fulfilling and lasting relationships feed each other's emotional needs. Fulfilling and lasting relationships feed each other's emotional needs. You see, in the beginning of dating, think about this for a minute, kind of travel with me for a moment. The person you see when you first meet them is who you think they are. Think about it for a moment. You really don't know anything about them. You might see somebody, and we've all seen a person where like, we meet them for 5 minutes, it's like, why can't my wife be like that? Why can't my husband be like that? Because we've just made them into some figure in our minds. All we do is see them and maybe have a slight interaction with them. The person is not who we really are when we first see them. Think about it. They're not. They've become what our thoughts are about them. This is what I think of you, therefore that's who you are. And over time, what happens is when we're with somebody, we start dating them, in the beginning, they're like, whoa, you can't sleep at night. You're calling them on the phone and talking to them for hours. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. You hang up first. Did you hang up? No. Right? You're like, you're like, this is the one. I can't even sleep without you. I'm sick to death because of this. Right? But over time, they change. What happened? Did they change? No. Your perception about them changed. That's what happened. I no longer see you the way I once saw you. And what's happening is that change is taking place inside of us. They're the same person, but the way we perceive them has begun to change. How do you keep fascination with love of the person that you've met? That's the question, right? Because everybody, married person here knows that sometimes we're like, oh, I do love you, but I don't sometimes like you. It's like we've been in those moments. We're like, okay, you have to do this. Change how you think about them and change how you treat them. You see, sometimes we start going down that slippery slope and we're like, okay, you're not anything that I thought you were. Now we're starting to just kind of go down, 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 down. You're this, you're that, whatever it is. You see, men ask a question every single day. And the way we change this in our minds, the way we change this difference in opinion about our spouse or the one that we're with is that we have to change how we begin to treat them. So men have a question they ask every day. I talked about this in a series I did called Two Become One. And every woman asks the same question every day of her life. Every man asks the same question every day of his life. The man asks the question, do I have what it takes? He's trying to discover in this world, do I have what it takes to do whatever it is? And so men want to be recognized for their achievements. If you come to my house, you know what you're going to find? Me giving you a tour of the fruit trees that I have in my side yard. Look at what I have produced. Look what I have done in my life, right? And it's just inside of me. And I'm like showing them. You go to the guy's house. Look at my car. See this car? It's pretty awesome, right? It is awesome. Or, hey, look at this boat that I got. Really cool boat. Or look at my house. And we just had this done over here. Or look at my wife. This is my wife. I achieved. I was able to do it because every day the man wakes up, whether he wants to or not, and he's asking the same question, do I have what it takes? I see it in my son all the time. Dad, can I climb that tree? Dad, can I jump that fence? Dad, can I pick up this rock? Dad, can I throw this as far? Right? So he's constantly trying to answer that question. And here's the deal. If you want to answer that question for the man and affirm him, right, and help bolster his emotional needs, it's pretty simple. Thank him for the things he does. Do you know how far it goes? It's my job to take out the trash. We were talking about this, I think, last week, right? And I neglect that sometimes. And my wife knows it, and she gets frustrated with me. But you know what she does when I take it out? She doesn't say, okay, finally you took it out. I was wondering whether you were going to take that out. My goodness. No, she just, thank you for taking out. Oh, I love you because you do that. And I'm thinking inside, I don't deserve this at all. But it makes me feel good, right? Because now you're speaking to the emotional need that a man has. You see, the woman asks the question every day of her life, too. She says this. She asks this question, whether you know it or not, ladies, this is true. Am I desirable? Every woman wakes up in the morning wondering the same thing. It pops up whether she wants to know the answer to this question, whether she wants it to or not. My wife asks me all the time, do I look good in this? Right? She's not necessarily saying, is this a nice looking outfit? She wants to know if I desire her. My wife wants to think, guys, this is a secret that I'm going to tell you right now. Your wife wants to believe that she is the only woman on the planet for you, and you're the only one she wants. I'm telling you, it's the truth. And if you ask her, she'll admit it. Listen, she wants to know that. So she wants to know when she cooks dinner all the time for me. She cooks all the time. Is it good? She's not asking the question, was it really good? I mean, there is part of that question there. She wants to know, do you desire me because I made you dinner tonight? That happens all the time in my house. And so I'm always constantly aware of that idea, and I'm like, I'm going to affirm her. I love you, baby, that you did this. This is amazing that you did this, right? The more I affirm her, the more I feed her emotional need. And the more I feed her emotional need, the more she becomes the thing that I wanted her to be. Guys, ladies, you want your husband to be responsible? You want your husband to do those things for you? Start affirming him in the things that he's doing, and he'll become that. Men, the truth is, men are pretty simple. We're just like golden retrievers. We just want to obey. And we want to please you. And if you make it very simple for us to please you and you thank us, we'll be as loyal as a golden retriever to you. When you honor someone, you will raise the value of that person, not only in their eyes, but in your eyes. The Bible says this, by the way, about these two ideas. It's found in Ephesians, one of the biggest places of marriage in the New Testament. It says, nevertheless, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Men, show her the love that she deserves. Women, show him the respect, and watch what will happen in your relationship. They will become what you're speaking of them. So I want to close with this story. And this story, by the way, it appeared in Women's Day and in Reader's Digest. It was called Johnny Lingo and the 8-Cow Wife. And so it takes place as a woman, she's on vacation. She's in the South Pacific island of Kinawata. And so she's in Kinawata, and she wants to get some things done. And she hears that the guy to get it done is Johnny. Because Johnny knows how to make deals. He knows how to get things that you can't find, right? And so she finds him, and she's searching for him, and she goes to the specific island where he's at. And so this Johnny was interested in getting married. And he's interested in a wife, and her name was Sarita. Now, Sarita, among the people, was considered kind of average at best in how she appeared and what she looked like. And so it was really strange because there, to get the wife, you had to give a dowry, right? And if you would give like 2 cows for something, you would give 2 cows for like an average wife. So like, all right, is she worth 2 cows, 2 or 3 cows, right? If you gave like 4 or 5 cows, then they were like really good looking. They were really desirable. And so everyone was really confused to find out that he paid 8 cows for this woman. In fact, 8 cows had never been paid for in that community for a woman ever. And so this girl, I got to go visit Johnny. I got to go discover what's going on. So he goes to meet Johnny. He's not there in the house at the moment. She gets there, and there's this beautiful woman who's taking care of all of her needs, offering her something to drink, giving her hospitality. And so when he walks in, he finds out that Sarita is this woman. And she says, Johnny, how did this work out? And he said this, many things can change a woman, but the thing that matters most is what she thinks of herself. In Kinawata, Sarita believed she was worth nothing. Now, she knows she is worth more than any other woman in the islands. And she became what he had desired. Some people are sitting here today as I'm talking about this message, and you're wondering, one, can I ever find that woman? You can. You can. You trust God. You go to the places where you're going to find that woman, that Christian woman who's following God too. And he's going to make that connection. But you get to know her and you make sure on the inside she's who you want to be. But there's some of you sitting here in a relationship going, can I never make this work? It didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to work. And you don't know her. You don't know him. This is almost impossible. Anything is possible with God. Anything is possible with God. Could it be that we've gotten to a point in this relationship where we kept thinking the negative, the negative, the negative, the negative. And now all they are is what we've perceived them to be. Because if you'll turn it over to God, and you'll start doing what the Bible instructs us to do, even this crazy book in the Old Testament Song of Solomon, and you start to show them affirmation of who they are emotionally, and they start to become the thing that you've always wanted them to be. Because that's the way God does things. You know, each and every one of us, we're an 8-cow wife. We're an 8-cow wife to God. There was no reason for him to want us, to desire us. In fact, the Bible says, all we, like sheep, have gone astray. There is none who seeks God. No, not one. I wasn't one. And yet God says, even though you're running away, even though your sins are like scarlet, even though your righteousness is like filthy rags, I am going to come for you. And I'm going to pay the 8 cows. But he didn't pay the 8 cows. He paid the price of his son for you and for me, so that we might be set free. Set free from our sins, set free from the curse, set free from the ugliness that we brought upon ourselves. And if you'll turn from who you are, trust God, and ask him to make you new, he will do it. And he does it by the power of his son. We're going to close. So we're going to turn off the lights and we're going to pray. God, thank you for this story. I mean, we can read it and just pass it by and say it doesn't really mean anything. And yet I believe that, God, if you somehow miraculously have preserved it in the scriptures for over these thousands of years, that there is a purpose in it for us. Lord, the truth is, aside from you, the most important relationship in our lives is going to be that significant other. It's going to be our spouse. We're to spend the rest of our lives with that person. So God, help us glean from this book what we need to hear. Lord, speak into my life today what I need to hear when it comes to relationships. Lord, because I believe there is an amazing blessing in the marriage between a man and a woman. God, I'm asking you, Lord, to whatever I've been thinking, to transform that into what you think is right for me. If we can remain in an attitude of prayer for just a moment. As I said, God gave his son for you and me because he loves us that much. In so many ways, this is a love story between God and us, his people. And he wants you to know that he loves you and that he would give anything for you. And if you're in that place, you said, I want to get rid of the ugliness. I want to get rid of the sins that have been holding me back. And God, I want to embrace you and become new. Then you simply ask him, because the work has already been done through his son Jesus, who paid for all of our sins. And if you receive him, you make him your Lord and Savior, and you dedicate your life to following him, not only will you be saved, but he will transform who you are here and now in this world.